and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. Thank you for staying with us. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Once considered diseases of affluence, today non-communicable diseases, also called NCDs, are the leading causes of death and disability all over the world. NCDs, non-transmissible and usually of long duration, include cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, mental and neurological disorders, and collectively are responsible for 74% of global deaths. In March 2023, at the 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, CSW 67, global leaders, researchers, and others highlighted the disproportionate burden of NCDs and associated risk factors amid persistent gaps women and girls face in access to NCD-related information, prevention, diagnosis, services, and support. For example, according to the Pan-African Health Organization in 2008, the overall NCD age standardized causes of death in low and middle income countries were 65% for males and 85% for females. My guest on the program is public health physician and CEO, Nigeria Solidarity Support Fund, Dr. Fejiro Chinye Nwoko. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let us first find out what are the major risks of non-communicable diseases.
Okay, thank you. So again, just to recap, that non-communicable diseases are diseases that cannot be transmitted from one person to the other. Under these classes, you've mentioned correctly some of them, which are the cardiovascular diseases, we have diabetes, we have cancers, and chronic respiratory disease. All four of them contribute to about 80% of NCDs. So those are the four that we'll sort of measure on today. So what are risk factors? So there are the modifiable risk factors and the non-modifiable. Under the modifiable risk factors, there are the behavioral risk factors. So there are four major ones. So tobacco usage, alcohol usage, unhealthy diet, so high fats and high sodium or high salt diet, and lastly is physical inactivity. So all four of those risk factors are modifiable and they are behavioral, meaning that you decide what to do about them, or for you can control that. We have the non-modifiable risk factors such as race, age, gender. That's you cannot do anything about. So those are non-modifiable. But those modifiable behavioral risk factors also lead to what we call the metabolic risk factors. And by the time you start saying metabolic risk factors, mean that you must, in fact, you don't need to wait, but it means that those behavioral risk factors have not been managed well. You have not modified them,
and
they have left to that.
Stuff like
so
that.
Those metabolic risk factors are high cholesterol, high blood sugar level, hyperglycemia. We have hypertension, so the high blood pressure, and then you have you have obesity and overweight. So by the time you're saying obesity, overweight, then you know that you have not modified something in your behavioral risk factor, which had led to them. There's another risk factor, the environmental risk factor, which many times we leave out. Air pollution leads to NCDs.
So do you call that modifiable or non-modifiable?
It's environmental risk factors that can be modified, because you can decide we can, as a country, as a people, we can decide to have clean air. So from cooking gas, from using the liquefied cooking gas rather than the firewood, can lead to air pollution. The generator, petrol, can lead to air pollution. So those are environmental, they are modifiable. It can lead to air pollution. Then the use of fossil fuels, cars, trucks, without exhaust, bad exhaust, leads to air pollution. So all of this air pollution there can be modified because they lead to chronic respiratory diseases.
But how much of air pollution is responsible for NCDs? Is it infinitesimal or is it a major part of it?
So with NCDs, most of the risk factors are multifactorial. So you don't have one risk factor responsible
So one
for
feeds
it,
into another.
But we know that with the poor air condition of a country, it leads to two major diseases: the ischemic heart disease and then the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
Just hang on a second.
Yes,
air pollution leads to ischemic heart disease.
Yes.
That's the first time I'm hearing this.
Yes, it does. It's a contributing factor, a significant contributing factor to ischemic heart disease. It's very significant, as well as the chronic pulmonary obstructive disease. And a lot of people are beginning to come down with this. And then asthma. Asthma also worsens in poor health, air pollution condition. So it is very significant, but it's less talked about. But of course, that's why a lot of climate change actions have started, and promotion of clean energy use in the homes, especially in the homes, because you stay more at home. So also city planning, town planning, so that you're not living on the highway where there is a lot of fossil fuel gas because of the cars that are moving by. Town planning, that you live outside of the main expressway where there's a lot of use of that. Then, of course, we're not also speaking about the global climate change. So we think about the oil companies and how they flare gas and all the gas flaring. All of that contributes to the air, the cleanness of the air that we breathe in. All that contributes to non-communicable diseases, chronic diseases that eventually leads to death. And this is very important because 27% of deaths in Nigeria as a result of NCDs. So it is beginning to become very, very, and in fact, it's called the slow motion disaster because it's not written on the face. By the time you're in modifiable risk factors, nothing shows, even though you go for a checkup, nothing necessarily would show. By the time you get to metabolic diseases, it doesn't show except you go and check, so its effect is over time. And by the time you're getting to treatment, the treatment cost is a high burden on the health system.
How much of what is done in childhood and adolescence contributes to, young girls and women having these problems?
Very significant. And, it's also very good that now to note that nowadays we see the occurrence of this non-communicable diseases in younger adults. So before, it was a disease for the rich.
Yes.
Now it's a disease for all class.
Before it was for the old.
For the old. Now it's a disease for the young. So you're seeing teenagers coming down with hypertension, coming down with stroke, having diabetes. You're seeing young adults. So I think the modifiable risk factors has worsened. Before, children used to always play in the playground.
Yes.
So if we talk about physical inactivity, it wasn't common in children. It was later on adults that had more sedentary lifestyle. So you go to work, you sit down, you're in the car, you sit down. But children, they never used to have that. They were always climbing trees. They were always playing football.
At least two things that are reducing that. Number one is the phones.
It's the phones.
And number two is the houses. Every little space.
Yes, there are no playgrounds in the houses. There are no playgrounds in schools. You'd be surprised that
in schools.
Even some schools don't have. They just have a small, tiny, that 5 children cannot even run around.
Shouldn't we put this in legislature?
Of course, we'll come to what we can do policy-wise, because in Europe, you'll be shocked that there are more bicycles than there are human beings in Europe, especially in Amsterdam, because they prioritize physical activity, they prioritize healthy living. So as a country, we can begin to legislate and put laws, just the way there is a tobacco ban on advertisement, there is the high taxation for tobacco products and some alcohol products. Why are there no hard bans for high salt food? Again, the children are now taking more junk than before. So those days, children eat healthy meals at home. Now there's a lot of snack and fizzy drinks for children.
Okay, so these behavioral differences cut across both men, women, boys and girls. Mm-hmm. But the Pan-Atlantic Health Organization and the World Health Organization say that there are gender-related challenges to addressing NCDs. What are these?
Okay, so incidence rates for women for incidence is higher than the male. And a lot of factors will contribute to it. These behavioral factors, we also know that they affect women a lot as well. Also is our hormones. So there is the hormonal changes in a woman that can lead to that. But secondly, is also the predisposing factors of finances.
Okay.
So women earn less. So a woman that earns less is going to have less good nutrition. She would eat less healthy meals. She's also earning less. She may not be able to afford the liquefied cooking gas. So she would be the one in the kitchen cooking with firewood and no proper ventilation. We also know that the poverty affects the living, and we learned cross ventilation in school, but nowadays houses, I don't think that we practice cross ventilation as much. So she's cooking in that environment. She's the one cooking with the stove or the firewood. She's also the one that doesn't have access to enough finances because she doesn't earn well. Most of the time, she's a housewife and that needs to ask her husband for money for everything.
Oh, I've seen that firsthand in the hospital.
For everything. And the man may say, oh, you're wasting so much money on food. Just use these peanuts and get it. And so she doesn't eat healthy. She doesn't also have access to health care. She doesn't have a health insurance. And we know that health care is quite expensive, especially when paying out of pocket because you didn't plan it. So she's most likely not going to go into the hospital for routine checkup. She lacks access to information, health information that may help her to make better choices in life. Most of health information, where do we get them? We're either getting them off the news or the TV stations, or we're getting them from friends, or we're getting them at work. If this woman is not working, you've called out health education at work. If her friends are not people that have the education, she doesn't have it. If she doesn't have access to the radio, to the TV, she doesn't have that access.
Oh, she might have access, but she's cooking.
She's cooking. She's busy with the children. She's overwhelmed with taking care of the home. She's trying to provide. She's absent-minded because she's so busy with what can I do? What are we eating?
And
where is the next meal?
Is it not true that she's cutting out of her money just to make a better life for the children?
Oh, of course. There's no woman that has not put themselves last. She puts herself last. So most of the time, even women eat later than the whole family because she caters for the family all through the day. And when everybody has gone, then she eats late. And late night eating also leads to obesity. So she's putting herself last. She's not resting.
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
Obesity is a major problem, yes. I know. Is this obesity because of pregnancy majorly? You know, that's pregnancy and childbirth. Or does it extend into metabolism? Does she metabolize her food slower than men? And does she eat more than a man? Why are women bigger? Because it is true that women are generally fatter than men.
Yeah.
So what contributes to that? Okay,
so obesity is a metabolic disorder. I won't say it's a disease, it's a metabolic disorder, meaning that it is one of the metabolic processes, the natural metabolic processes, is not performing as it should. So there is an hindrance. And what leads to metabolic process? A lot of things. First things for women, I would say, is the high cortisol level. Women have higher cortisol level and cortisol is the hormone for stress. It's a stress hormone. So because they are anxious about the family, anxious about the children, anxious about the living condition, the financial state of the family, anxious about how to add everything up. You're working, you're a mother, you are a wife, you are everything, you are a sister, you are a daughter to aging parents. You're managing so many things.
Because of that, she gets fat.
And yes, the cortisol level increases. The stress hormone, the cortisol level increases. And because there's also societal pressure on you to perform all of this. So the man may have all of these responsibilities because he's a father. I know some men will be saying, but we have the same responsibility. But they are not under pressure to be all things to all men.
And that pressure makes a difference.
That makes a difference because a woman will carry the burden like, if I don't do it, nobody else will do it. A man will say it will be all right. And he will cross his leg. And let's not demonize the men, not all men, but society, culturally,
yes.
the African woman.
It may not even be the husband.
It may not be the husband,
society.
just society. Even your mom will say that I had 11 children and I was able to cope. You have only 4.
And why is your husband in the
exactly
kitchen?
why
we
you
have to take a short break. Please stay with us. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. It's Health Matters on Channels Television, and we're talking about women and NCDs with Dr. Fejiro Chinyemoko. And you can call if you have questions, call 0808 054 2233. You can send a message on X at CTV_Mary A, or send me email, moalale@channelstv.com, while we continue with the program. So I want to ask you, how does pregnancy affect, pregnancy and childbirth affect NCDs in women other than by weight gain?
Yes. Okay, so that's very important. So pregnancy is a high stress period for a woman's body. Because our hormones are increasing in increasing amount, the estrogen, the progesterone, all increase to support the carrying of the baby. And these hormones have effects on her body, on weight gain, as well as her heart condition. So she then needs to pump blood for like 2 people, if we put it that way. And so pregnancy is the time that reveals a lot of NCDs in women as well, because they are now high stress. So the body was maybe performing just at the borderline of abnormal and was not noticed. And then she carries a baby, and then it notices that she has a large heart, an enlarged heart. That's she was doing pretty much okay without the baby, but that period has then revealed and exacerbated an illness that was just borderline about to show up. So it exacerbates NCDs, so cardiovascular diseases, even diabetes. So women were pre-diabetic before pregnancy, and in pregnancy you find out that their sugar level goes up, and that's why they do the OGTT test.
If there's diabetes in pregnancy, it actually means that it was going to happen anyway.
It may eventually, now it is noticed that it is going to happen later on. Any woman that was diabetic in pregnancy, she needs to watch it, because eventually she may become diabetic if she doesn't modify. But if you then go back and quickly modify those risk factors we talked about, then she has the chances of preventing it from happening. But if she leaves herself, most likely she will come out being diabetic. Because after pregnancy, you see that the sugar level may drop, but eventually 20, 30 years down the line, she comes back diabetic.
How about the heart condition?
The heart condition, most women, it may normalize, but most women doesn't. It doesn't. It continues. So we've seen that happen. Even a woman that was anemic before she becomes pregnant, and she goes into full-blown anemia that results to anemic heart condition and heart failure, sometimes heart failure in pregnancy. So beyond the weight gain, all of these hormonal changes have an adverse effect on the woman's predisposition, her risk factors, underlying risk factors that normally, if she wasn't pregnant, it may not have exacerbated as at that time. So pregnancy is a trigger for the pre-existing risk factors. And so that's why it's very important that women take care of their stress levels. We're talking about stress levels, high stress level. Another thing is physical inactivity. Women, although they are very busy, they are not physically active in the right way. Physical activity is exercise, because they are so busy with house chores and taking care of the children and making sure ends meet. Women don't exercise.
Can I pause you there and bring in Edith, who is in Ikorodu? She has a question. Hello, Edith.
Yes. Hello.
Hello, Edith, are you there?
The question I want to... Ma?
Yes, go ahead with your question. We can hear you.
My daughter gave birth. She gave birth last 3 months ago, and her BP refused to come down.
High before the pregnancy?
It was not high before. This is the first child. It's her first child. During the pregnancy, when she was about to give birth, when she was about to deliver, the BP became high, of which they have to do CS for her. Then since that day, it was yesterday, she completed a month, 3 months that she gave birth, and the BP refused to come down. And she had been taking drops now. The thing refused to come down. The last time she went for checkup, it was 135/85.
Okay, Edith, thank you. I'll let the doctor address that. I thought that once a woman had preeclampsia, the pressure came down after the baby came out.
Okay, so the pressure, preeclampsia is a combination of high blood pressure and protein in urine.
Okay.
Right? So after delivery, the pressure should come down to a level that should not be a threat to her in terms of mortality. And the protein in the urine should reduce. But we found that most of the time, it may not come back to normal. The woman may have to be placed on drugs for a while.
But what Edith mentioned is pretty high.
Yes.
And she says her daughter is taking
3
medication.
months. Yes.
So what could be the problem?
So most of the time, hypertension has to be managed with multi-drugs, not one. I don't know how many drugs she's on. Most time they have to give her more than one class of drug. Okay. They have to put her in 2 or 3 classes of drug to address the hypertension. So she needs to go and see a physician. So during pregnancy, you see an obstetrician, which is a pregnancy doctor. Mm-hmm. Now she needs to go and see a physician, an adult doctor that needs to put her in a combination therapy because it's very important for her kidney health. All of these things lead to end organ damage. So her kidney hypertension is not good for the kidneys. So we need to bring it further down. So she needs to go see a doctor. Multiple therapy may be what would help her, and also physical activity. Physical activity as
Can you engage in physical activity when your blood pressure is high?
Yes.
People are scared.
No.
That if they go and begin to exercise and walk up and down,
nobody said you should run on a treadmill.
Let it not go higher.
Nobody said you should play a football match. Nobody said you should run on a treadmill. Physical exercise, a brisk walking for 30 minutes, 5 times a week can help to bring down the blood pressure. So yes, she takes her drug, and maybe the moment she takes her drug, she will feel the BP will come down a bit. You can use that time to exercise. She has to add physical, because most of the time, the doctors may give you drugs, but drugs alone cannot help you because the risk factors still need to be modified to help the drugs to achieve its desired outcome. So she must add physical exercise, and to all women. And that's what I was saying, that because of the societal pressure on women, we neglect ourselves. So we are stressed and we're not sleeping well. Most women don't sleep up to 8 hours a day. We're not sleeping well, we're not exercising, and we're eating wrongly. Again, what is she eating? You find out that people say when you're postpartum, you're breastfeeding, you must eat. No, the breast milk has nothing to do with what you are just eating now. You're not it's going to use your fat stores. So she must eat healthy. She must eat well, but eat healthy. You don't have to eat unhealthy.
We've gotten a lot from what you said. I'm sure we can say more about legislation and all that, but there's no time for that. We have to close now. Thank you so much. I've learned such a lot of information. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And thank you for being there. Thank you, Edith, for that wonderful question. And have a wonderful day, everybody. I'm Mary Alale Yusuf.